quantity and quality of the harmonic progressions by far exceed what one could find in the equivalent space by Michael Jackson as well as Elton John or even Queen. With this harmonic material, they could have filled up an entire album. Now, to be true, this isn't actually a quote on Nik Kershaw's chord progressions. The real quote is referring to Richard Wagner's first completed opera, The Fairies, and draws a comparison to his contemporary German composer fellows. But having invested so much of my research in both Richard Wagner and Nik Kershaw's music, I cannot prevent myself from drawing the same conclusion when transcribing Nik's songs and comparing them to what I would expect from some of his fellow musicians. All of these are great musicians with great music, but there's just so many more chords, more key changes, more harmony in Nik's music. And this fascinates me. And I have the feeling I am not. Yeah, more on this song later. It has been quite a while now since my 1-hour breakdown, but I finally had some time to prepare more YouTube analysis stuff. I decided not to put everything into one video this time, so be prepared for a little series of Nik Kershaw analysis over the next couple of days and weeks, which means stay tuned, hit the bell and the subscribe button if you didn't already, and don't want to miss anything. Of course, you might ask what the point is in taking Nik's music apart even more, since the big names, The Riddle, Wouldn't It Be Good, Human Racing, all have been covered in one of my previous videos. But I promise you, there's underrated songs with some pretty crazy stuff still left untouched and only waiting to be discussed. I want to try and cover not only his 80s stuff, but a wider range of his 4 decades of songwriting, including even an appearance from his latest album. But to be honest, in harmonic terms, most of the extravagant stuff that established this idiosyncratic style happened way back in the 80s, with only a few exceptions in all of his later albums. One can of course only guess why that is, and why Nik's taste has changed so much towards more common chord progressions since then, but in his defense let me state that his qualities of being an insanely good songwriter both on the text and the melody level haven't changed at all. And some of the most memorable tunes come from his 2 latest albums. Even 2020's Oxymoron. For today, let me just briefly exemplify this with You're the Best from 2012's album 8.
It's a pleasure and an honor, and I really wouldn't wanna get the words wrong.
The verse melody can simply be described as being filled up 4th leaps fitting nicely into the B-flat major C major pendulum.
I could make it easy with a poem or a cheesy little love song.
Because the starting point and the final of the melody both are C, I'd consider this to be in C mixolydian. This mixolydian mode, however, is substituted with some straightforward C minor material in the pre-chorus section.
I like to play it cool, I wouldn't wanna look a fool, I wouldn't wanna.
Harmonically speaking, this really isn't so much exciting stuff, but the very basic and repetitive shape of the melody in combination with those nice chord progressions really help the melody a lot, being so easily memorable.
You're the best, I confess it, I'm impressed.
The chorus melody isn't really any more elaborate, and I think I even would get annoyed very quickly of this totally basic melody shape if there wasn't this intriguing counter melody at the same time. There's really some James Bond vibes in this. Now, a really important lesson when it comes to melody making: if you decide to dead straightforward repeat your melody, as Nik does here, try to give it at least a slightly different ending the second time. You don't need to change the main melody much. But gosh, this little hook line really is a sweet ear catcher. And I could talk a lot now about the reason for this working well is that it finally established a satisfying cadence after the James Bond-like chord pendulum from before left us a little uneasy until this very moment, and that it is rooted in the pentatonic scale and so on. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just quickly summarize that Nik is still an insanely good melody writer, and this aspect of his music making hasn't decreased at all in the many years of his career. Okay, so much for this very quick introduction today. Stay tuned, because we're gonna dive in deep very, very soon.